This one is for my younger self. I know you have a presentation tomorrow. You have been working on it all week, late nights, early mornings. You know the material cold. You are as prepared as you have ever been, and you have absolutely no idea what is about to happen in that room. I do, because I have been in that room hundreds of times, on both sides of the table. And what I am about to tell you would have saved me years. Not years of learning, years of not being able to switch off. So stay with me, this is important. Here's what is happening in every marketing meeting before a single slide is shown. Let's say there are 5 people in the room. Each of them has spent their entire life building a personal library of reference points. Every campaign they have ever seen, every client they have ever worked with, every piece of feedback they have ever given or received, every personal opinion they have ever formed about what good marketing looks like. 5 people, 5 completely different libraries. And unless you align them before the presentation begins, unless you make sure all 5 people are evaluating the work through the same lens, you are not running one meeting. You are running 5 different meetings simultaneously. Nobody knows this is happening. It feels like one room, one conversation, one presentation. But the moment you finish showing your work, the moment you ask for a response, those 5 separate meetings announce themselves all at once. And here's where you make the mistake I made more times than I can count. You finish presenting. The room is quiet for a second. Then you ask, "So, what do you guys think?" I need you to understand what you just did. That question felt natural. It felt collaborative. It felt like you were inviting people in. What you actually did was flip the spotlight. 1 second ago, it was shining on you, on your work, on your ideas. The moment you said, "What do you think?" the spotlight moved. Now it's on them. And every single person in that room just went from observer to performer. Nobody wants to look disengaged. Nobody wants to be seen as the person who sat through a whole presentation and had nothing to say. Everyone wants to look intelligent. Everyone wants to make a good impression. So they have to say something right now, in front of their colleagues, under pressure. Think about what that actually feels like. Imagine a TV camera. It swings around and points directly at you while you are standing in an art gallery. And then someone asks, "What do you think about this art piece?" The stress is immediate. Heart rate up, breathing heavier, armpits sweaty, brain scrambling for something, anything. Anything that sounds intelligent and considered. I'm not saying your marketing presentation is art. I'm saying the stress level in that room is closer to that moment than anyone admits. And what comes out of people under that kind of pressure is not considered evaluation. It is performed intelligence. Random reference points pulled from personal experience. Half-formed opinions articulated under stress. Scattered thoughts dressed up as feedback. And because the question was, "What do you think?" they have to frame all of it as their personal thoughts, which means every response is filtered through their individual worldview, their personal taste, their own private library of reference points. 5 people, 5 libraries, 5 responses. No common denominator between any of them. The meeting feels productive. Everyone spoke. Everyone added their contribution. There was energy in the room. You leave with 30 comments and absolutely no clarity on what actually needs to change. There is a second version of this mistake worth mentioning. Sometimes, instead of "What do you think?" you ask, "Does anyone have comments or questions?" This one feels safer. Less pressure on the room, but it has a different problem. "I don't have any comments right now" is a completely reasonable answer to that question. Nobody is obliged to perform. Nobody has to have an opinion immediately, which means the most likely response is, "Let's sit on this. We'll come back to you later." That sounds fine. It sounds measured and professional. What it actually is a timestamp of death on whatever you just presented. When it does come back, it will come back changed by opinions formed in corridors and side conversations that you were not part of and cannot respond to. This is where the work starts following you home. You start collecting open loops in your head after a meeting with no resolution. You thought the work was done. but then it comes back later. The feedback doesn't attach to anything clear. There's no backbone there. You cannot make sense of it after the meeting because it didn't have the backbone to attach to. So the loop stays open. You have a dinner reservation tomorrow evening. You will be sitting across your wife. Wine on the table? She's saying something, and I need to be honest with you. You will not hear a single word she says. Physically, you are there. Mentally, you are still in that meeting, trying to figure out what went wrong, trying to understand which of those comments actually mean something, trying to work out what to change and how to walk back in there next week with something better. After a while, you will even start questioning whether marketing is for you at all, whether you are good enough for this, whether you made the right choice. But don't fall for it. It's not a talent problem. It's a structural failure. And structural failures have structural solutions. You got this. Here's the thing nobody says out loud in those rooms. The people who gave you that feedback are not difficult. They are not bad at their jobs. They're not trying to make your life harder. You simply put them on the spot with no shared criteria and ask to perform intelligence under pressure. Of course, what came out was scattered. The system produced that result, not the people. When there is no shared framework for evaluation, opinion fills the space. And opinion under pressure is the worst possible version of the opinion. So this is not a people problem. This is an assumed context problem. Everyone in that room assumed everyone else meant the same thing. They didn't. They never do. And nobody checked. So here's what you do instead. Before you show a single slide, before you reveal a single idea, you spend 2 minutes doing one thing. You align the room on how to evaluate what they are about to see, what to think about it, how to evaluate it. This is the difference between running one meeting and running 5 simultaneously. If the work is creative, you explain the creative equation. Attention, curiosity, clarity. How great creative ideas work as puzzles. What the audience experience is supposed to feel like. Then you show the work. And now the questions in that room are different. Not what do you think? Instead, does this create an attention moment? Is the puzzle clear enough or is it confusing? Does the clarity line resolve it properly? Do these creative ideas deliver on the criteria we established? So the feedback attaches to the structure, not to taste, not to opinions, not to anyone's personal library of reference points. Someone might say, I'd like to try a different analogy, and that's useful. That is a real creative conversation. Nobody says, I just don't feel it, because feeling it is no longer the criteria. The structure is the criteria. And here's what changes after the meeting. When feedback attaches to structure, the next steps are clear. You know exactly what to adjust. You know exactly why. So the work closes, and it stays closed. And here's something worth remembering about that room. Nobody in there wanted to perform under pressure. Nobody enjoyed being put on the spot. Nobody left feeling good about the scattered feedback they gave. When you walk in with a framework, when you give everyone a shared way to evaluate what they are seeing, you are not just protecting your work. You are giving everyone in that room permission to breathe again. That is what a structured meeting actually feels like. Not a defense, not a battle, one conversation. One set of criteria, everyone on the same side. So, tomorrow's meeting, walk in early. Before you show anything, spend 2 minutes aligning the room. Tell them how to evaluate what they are about to see. Give them the criteria. Give them the structure. Then show the work. And when you finish, do not ask what they think. Ask, does this do what we just agreed it needs to do? That is one meeting, not 5. And tomorrow evening, you will sit across from your wife at that dinner table. Wine on the table, she will say something, and you will actually hear it. Because the work will be closed, not following you, not living in your head. Closed. And that is what this is really about. Not better presentations. Being present for the life that is happening while you are busy trying to make sense of feedback that was never structured to make sense in the first place. You got this.